content of this channel is for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised. You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. Please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell notification button. And please, feel free to share the video. Thank you.
What's good, everybody? How y'all doing this evening, man? I'm the G with a PhD, and the G stands for getting it in. What's going on with y'all, man? You know where you are. You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. It's the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, no chasers. And I want to give a shout out to all the people out there in the chat. Petway Boy, Adam Williams. Hey Shaw, what's going on with you? Glad to see you this evening. T Riddler, Jones Boy, Barry Little, what's going on with y'all? How y'all doing? Lee Rittenauer, Just DeAndre, what's cracking? Well, you know what I do, man, before I get things started. I like to give a shout out to all of the members of the Green Gorilla channel. So let's take care of that. I want to give a shout out to Darkside Chaos, Greg, Rais Muajid, Darnell Smith, Antonio Feria, Papa Didas, Barry Little, Brotherly Love 215, Alan Wiley, Mr. Valentino, Jason Hales, The Final Watcher, Black Men Being Brutally Honest, 77 Base X, Craig, Omni Americana, Cameron 87, Deshaun Nolly, Brian Peaks, Michael Ross, Nelso, Apex Prowler, Kareen Henry, Doc LaRock, Julius Ferguson, B. Hillfire, J. Charles, Mark Holt, Lee Ways, Jeffrey Speed, The Face, Mark Swift, Show Me, Black Dog, Odd Collard, Raphael Brown, Deanne, Donald Watts, Ryan Jackson, HipHop.CATV, Coach DC, The Remedy, Kashif Caldwell, Ominous Black, I Am Black Man, Nichita, True King 337, Mr. Blue Collar, Barnolas, Kyle J. Sura, I'm Just Jules, Ab Media 83, Brian McMurray, TD Hip Hop Media, Drew Main, Artisan MC, Mr. Heat, Afro Analyst, Issa Abdul Zahir, Sir Anthony, MLR, Charles Rogers, Universal 178, Black Swerve 404, Rashid Barnes, Aaron Smith, DH, See Truth the Revelator, Gold Professor, Arthur Unknown, Dr. Tiasan Johnson, Brian Williams, Kalanja Kala, Ricky Dawson, Cedric Bowman, True 7360, BK Born Shahid, James Washington, Hostile Adept, Seven Coast Dojo, W Pure 1, BGS Ibmore, and Marvin Battle Jr. And I can't forget my brother in heaven, Forrest Windu. Shout out to you, my brother. And on the Patreon side, I want to give a shout out to Chris York, Excalibur, Jason Warren, Soul Pen, Anu219, Pursuer Prisoner, Taz, Kwaku 217, S. Haywood, Dragon 59, Supreme Ibmore, Adrian Hicks, Jay Bailey, Mr. Michi, Momal, William Ruffin, and Asangwa. I appreciate y'all helping y'all support, man. Thank you so much for being members of the Green Gorilla channel, man. Y'all deserve a round of applause. Get my highest honors, man. That's honest. And if you're wondering about how you can also become a member of the Green Gorilla channel, well, here's how.
What's good, everybody? I'm the G with a PhD, and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel, the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, no chaser. Today, I want to introduce you to my new membership program that consists of 5 levels where you can invest in the Green Gorilla channel on a monthly basis and receive level-specific perks. Memberships are special because they improve the quality of the content of the channel and will help me to be able to keep the channel going. Now, to participate in the Green Gorilla channel membership program, all you have to do is hit the join button, which is located right next to the subscribe button on my channel page. Now, for all of my subscribers who decide not to participate in my membership program, nothing will change. The content will keep coming the way it always has. Thanks for watching, and be careful out here, people. Bless.
All right, y'all, we back. And let me just get right into what I'm, going to get into, which is discussing the issue about there being a proposal for a new deal for black men. And I got a question mark there because, everybody questions investing in black men and boys. There's no hesitation, no doubt, no disputation when it comes to helping out black women and girls. But when it comes to setting aside anything specifically for black men and boys, then there are charges and cries about sexism and discrimination and things of that sort. But before I even begin to talk about why there should be a new deal, and I'm going to read an article to you, but why there should be a new deal for black men and boys, we first have to have some sort of understanding of what the new deal was to begin with. So what was it? I mean, basically it was like a set of programs, public work projects, financial reforms, and regulatory measures ushered in by President Franklin Roosevelt. And he did this between 1933 and 1939. So he had major federal programs and agencies, which included the Civilian Conservation Corps, otherwise known as the CCC, the Civil Works Administration, which is known as the CWA, the Farm Security Administration, known as FSA, the National Industry Recovery Act of 1933, also known as NIRA, and the Social Security Administration. People don't want to, do without Social Security. But anyway, all of these programs were ushered in by Franklin Delano Roosevelt during the first term of his presidency, and for the most part between 1933 and 39. Okay. They provided, these programs did support for farmers, people who were unemployed, young people, old people. And the New Deal also included constraints and safeguards on the banking industry, efforts to reinflate the economy after the Depression. And these programs were laws and acts passed by Congress and the president through executive orders during his first term. Okay. And typically when you talk about New Deal programs, it centers around the 3 R's, not reading, writing, arithmetic, but relief for the unemployed and the poor, recovery of the economy, and reform of the financial system. So that's pretty much what the New Deal is. But as it pertains to black men, let's have a discussion. Should there be a new deal for black men? And if so, why? And then what would it look like? Okay. So let's just get right into it, man. So I'm going to share the screen. I assume you can see this here. So this is an article and it's entitled "The Challenges Facing Black Men and the Case for Action." Okay, this article was written by Richard V. Reeves, Sarah Nzau, and Ember Smith. Okay, now the funny thing about this article is that it was written by, look, got a white guy there, an African woman there, and a white woman. And I'm not, throwing any salt on their writing of the article. I think the article is needed. I think that they have a perspective that needs to be heard. I don't agree with everything in this article, but at least they're confronting the issue that there are unique challenges that apply just to black men. Okay? So this is not going to be titillating and exciting like me going off on, black women or anything like that. But I think it's necessary to walk through the steps and to understand why there needs to be unique relief dedicated and allocated just to black men and boys, which everybody seems almost dead set against in the black community and in the society at large. Okay? So this paper was written in 1920. I admit that it's kind of old. It's not that old because it was written in November of not 1920, but 2020. But it was written, maybe about 8-9 months ago, okay? And it was prepared for an event called Overcoming Challenges Faced by Black Boys and Men, and it was basically sponsored by the Brookings Institution, okay? And so let me just read the article and to demonstrate to you why there are unique challenges just facing Black men and boys and not anybody else. But you know, what's funny about it though is they always include people with us. When you see programs allocated for Black women, typically you don't see any other demographics put alongside them. But in the case of this paper, which has no Black male author at all, which is odd to me, you see the inclusion of another demographic, and you'll see that. So it says, to be male, poor, and either African American or Native American is to confront on a daily basis a deeply held racism that exists in every social institution. And this is written by Camille Bousset. They're quoting her. No other demographic group has fared as badly, so persistently, and for so long. To meet this appalling crisis, Camille calls for nothing less than a new deal for Black men. And so I applaud her on this. And if you want to know who Camille Bousset is, I'll show you a picture of her. She's a Black woman. And shout out to Black women, man, who actually advocate in behalf of Black men and boys. New deal for poor African American and Native American boys. There's a picture right there. She's a senior fellow of economic studies, governance studies, and metropolitan policy program for the Brookings Institute. Okay. So anyway, that's just who she is. She's a Black woman. Okay. So back to the original article. All right. But you see how it's juxtaposed against Native American men. And I'm not taking anything away from Native American men and what they've gone through in this country, because those groups of persons have been subjected to genocide. They were wiped out. They were found to be useless. Their land was annexed and they were placed on reservations. So I'm not belittling or minimizing the plight of Native American men in any way, but it's just funny to me that there will be an article related to Black men and boys, and then also you would have to include alongside them other demographics, whereas you're talking about Black women, you typically don't see the inclusion of other groups. I wonder why that is. I just wonder, okay? So anyway, the article goes on to say that creating this new deal is one of the core priorities of the Race, Prosperity, and Inclusion Initiative directed by Camille, who is a Black woman. And shout out to her for actually acknowledging that something needs to be done. But then the question is, why is there not inclusion of Black men in the drafting of this article? And why aren't there Black men helping to spearhead this initiative? I just find it odd. And at least shout out to Char, because we basically had a show and she included us in an initiative that she's trying to put forward to try to make sure that Black men have cameras in their cars, so when they have interactions with the police, that they could actually be filmed, recorded, and documented. So if there's any foul play related to the police, they could be brought to justice. But at least she included us. Here you have a whole initiative, and I don't know that Black men are actually being included. I just find that problematic. But, you know, that's just me. Anyway, it's directed by Camille, right? But also of the New Boys and Men project launched today at the Center on Children and Families. The elements of this new deal will likely consist of intentional policy making in the fields of education and training, the labor market, family policy, especially for fathers, criminal justice reform, and tackling concentrated poverty. So those are the objectives, right? Those are the objectives. This is one area where it is reasonable to hope for some bipartisan action. I'm waiting to see that, because I see the Democrats looking out for Hispanics, not to take away from helping out Hispanics, but like, where's the help for us? I've seen help in programs and policy initiatives directed towards trans persons. I've seen initiatives and programs set forth and put forward for Black women, but I have yet to see anything come out of this. I just don't see anything yet having come out of it. But anyway, there's this commission that was created in 2019 and is charged with recommending policies to improve upon or augment current government programs. This bipartisan commission, which consists of 19 members, will investigate potential civil rights violations affecting Black males and study the disparities they experience in education, criminal justice, health, employment, fatherhood, mentorship, and violence. Now, this is funny to me because I just had a conversation with you all and a show allocated towards my brother's keeper and how a whole bunch of Black feminists stepped up and tried to block it. Even white feminists and white men. And they called it sexist. So if they did that with the My Brother's Keeper initiative, I find it hard to believe that this is going to gain any traction. Although it should gain traction. And you'll find out why there should be some gaining in traction. But anyway, moving on with the article. So they talk about the legislation and the actors, the key figures or persons who actually put it into being. So the legislation to create this commission was introduced in the House by Representative Frederica Wilson, shout out to Frederica Wilson, and sponsored in the Senate by Marco Rubio. Shout out to Rubio for this, although I don't agree with him on everything that he advocates politically. And oddly enough, Kamala Harris and Cory Booker. So this is a welcome and positive development, they say. It will be important for the commission to fully understand the challenges facing Black men specifically in order to target policy appropriately. Black boys and Black men in particular run the gauntlet of a specific brand of racism at the sharp intersection of race and gender. Now, this is funny, though, that they use this word intersection because they're making allusion to intersectionality. And there have been many scholars who do Black masculinist and Black male studies who've pointed out that intersectionality really doesn't work well for Black men and boys. Because ultimately, when people use it, they typically use it in order to demonstrate that minorities within minorities suffer more than Black men. So it's often used as a means by which to demonstrate that Black men don't need as much or don't deserve as much or not facing as many challenges as the minorities within the minority. So that's problematic off the bat. But okay. So anyway, they say what we're going to do is provide some key facts on Black men's outcomes in 8 important domains compared to Black women, and white men. So let's get into it. The first thing they talk about is education. So in 2019, 28% of Black men ages 25 through 29 had a bachelor's degree or higher, compared to 30% of Black women, over 40% of white men, and nearly half of white women, according to the National Center of Education Statistics. Man, those are staggering figures. So you got nearly half of white women who are educated. But the lowest demographic, and you got 40% of white men who are educated, 30% of Black women who are educated, and you got 28% Black men. And the gap is still greater at higher educational levels, as only half as many Black men have a master's degree, 4%, as Black women, 9%, and white men, 8%, and white women, 13%. So basically what I think is the reason for this is because there have been these inclusion and diversity policies in higher education for women, but not for black men. And this is a problem. And it needs to be addressed and it needs to be corrected. But that's just my opinion. And then they have a graph here. Young black men are poorly served by schools. Percentage of 25 to 29-year-olds with select levels of education attainment or higher. So black men are blue, black women are light blue, white men are dark orange, and white women are light orange. You can see that black men are at the bottom of every graph. So they got less associate's degrees, they got less bachelor's degrees, and they have less master's degrees than any other demographic. That's a problem. Then let's talk about the subject of upward mobility. They say that black women and white women raised by low-income parents, those in the bottom 20% of the income distribution, have similar rates of upward intergenerational mobility. So as it pertains to race, if you're a poor white woman and you're a poor girl raised by that poor white woman, your upward mobility and your chances of success are greater. So black women and white women are pretty much like at the same level when it comes to being upwardly mobile, measured in terms of their individual income as adults. Black men, by contrast, are much less likely than white men to rise up the income ladder. And this is according to Raj Chetty and his team at the Opportunity Insights, who've crunched the numbers on 20 million Americans in the 1978 through 1983 birth cohorts. A third of white men raised by low-income parents end up in the top 40 of the income distribution as adults, compared to only 19% of black boys. So they do good. They do well. A third of white men raised by low-income parents end up in the top 40, as compared to 19% of black boys. The figure below shows the probability of moving up the income ladder for children raised by low-income parents by race. The data shows that black men raised by low-income parents face twice the risk of remaining stuck in intergenerational poverty, 38%, as black women, 20% in terms of their individual income, meaning that it's harder for you as a black male than it is for you as a woman to emerge or to rise up out of intergenerational poverty. So black boys raised poor are the most at risk of remaining stuck in poverty. And here you have the bottom quintile, which is marked by blue, the second quintile marked by green, the middle quintile marked by purple, fourth quintile marked by blue, dark blue, and then you got the top quintile, which is red. Okay? So you can see black men occupy the lower quintile, the bottom quintile. Right? That's how much of the bottom quintile they occupy. White women are here at the bottom quintile. White men are here at the bottom quintile, but black women are here. So they don't remain stuck in poverty. There's something going on in the black community in which black women who are in poverty are able to rise out of it, but black men are not. And that's what we have to address. And it partially could be because of the fracturing and the fissuring of families, the rates of single motherhood, and you got black women raising black boys, and these black boys are not given the kind of attention and the kind of nurturing and education and development as they need. Could be something missing there. But that's intergenerational poverty and the subject of upward mobility. But then when it comes to earnings, there's something else fishy going on. So you got black workers, regardless of gender, basically earning less than whites, okay? And white men have substantially out-earned white women and black workers since the 80s. For both black and white workers, men earn more, but the gender gap is much smaller for black workers. So the figure below shows the weekly earnings of full-time workers, hourly and non-hourly, for black and white workers by gender since the 80s. And the results are striking. Black men earn $378 less per week than white men. And they also earn $125 less than white women. So it basically says overall white women have seen the biggest increases, and they overtook black men in the 1990s. And my view is this was all by design. Salute to Nasai Hiana. This is by design. This is the work of feminism at play. And this is diversity and inclusion measures at play for them. Not for us, but for them. And black women have pretty much been able to ride the coattails of white women's progress in order to make gains for themselves. And then again, there's some funny things going on in black culture and in black family life that make things more challenging for young black boys. So yes, black men earn less than white men and women. And one of the things that you got to do is when you start comparing income, you really actually need to measure income of black men with that of white men. But it's crazy that black men will be earning less than white women. But you can see black men and white women have been competing ever since the suffragette movement. This has been going on from the beginning. And this is why, Tommy Curry wrote or gave presentations on the idea that you think this is a movement, but actually it's a backlash. It's a way to circumvent black men's progress. And they use racist reasonings in order to demonstrate. How dare you give these monkeys jobs and allow them to have the vote? These rapists, these sexist abusers. How dare you give them social status and economic power above and beyond us? Those were the kind of arguments that they put forth. And then Frederick Douglass was actually supporting these women, but then he was like, come on, man. So he had to pull back. So anyway, you see the graphs, and there's a reason why men typically earn more than women. It's because of the kind of occupations that men enter into as opposed to women. Men tend to work longer hours, and they take on high pressure jobs more often, riskier jobs more often, and they don't have to take time off for pregnancies and to attend to or to rear children. So those are some of the reasons why you see disparities in income between men and women in general. But that's odd that men who are black would earn less than white women when black men typically, when they can work, are going to work the same kind of hours as white men and take on the same kind of risk as they work as white men. So there you have the graph, man. You see white men in blue, they earn more than everybody else. You got white women who are in light blue. They're earning, like in 2019, let's go with the 2019 numbers. They got $900 a week. White men get $1,153 a week. Black men get $775 a week. And black women get somewhere around $711 a week. Not very different from that of black men at all. And then you got the issue of labor force participation. So the labor force participation rate for black men aged 20 and over is 5.6 percentage points lower than for white men. Many men and women face different considerations when deciding to participate in the labor force. Again, I already mentioned that when I talked about the kind of choices that women make when they choose professions and what kind of hours they work and the time off that they take to have children. And so what they say is, for simplicity, we compare black and white men in terms of labor force participation. So the numbers are declining related to men in the labor force in general, though. And I think that this is primarily due to the lack of investment in men in general. But you know, when the white man has a cold, the black man has a flu. Okay? And this is also partially responsible related to the outsourcing of jobs and the mechanization of the labor force, or the mechanization of industry itself. So these numbers are dwindling. Okay. So white men 72%, black men 68% in 2019. In 2020, black men 66%, white men 70%. So that's that 5% difference. But let's look at unemployment. During COVID-19, black men have the highest unemployment rate of civilian, non-institutionalized black and white men and women over age 20. So black men are more unemployed. They're doing better in terms of earning cash overall than black women, but they are more unemployed. And that's not even accounting for institutionalized black men and white men. So there's a large race gap in unemployment, even before COVID-19. Prior to March 2020, black men consistently had among the highest unemployment rates of black and white workers. Unemployment shot up for everyone in April, and black women faced higher unemployment than black men for 2 months. As unemployment began to fall for most in June, black men's unemployment rose and remained high throughout September. In September, 12.6% of black men were unemployed compared to 6.5% of white men. So black men are twice as likely to be unemployed as white men. And yeah, like one of the brothers out there said, note the comparison in spikes. And this is, due partially, to COVID-19. Okay? But black men are hit like among the hardest. Black men and women. Okay? But let's get to life expectancy. Women live longer than men on average, but there are race gaps in this too. So life expectancy is the lowest for black men among black and white people. According to the CDC National Center for Health Statistics, both at birth and at age 65. For white men, life expectancy at birth is about 6 years lower than at age 65. But for black men, that gap is over 9 years, showing that black men are more likely to die prematurely. Black men die 4 years earlier than white men. So you can see this, right? Black men at birth, black men at age 65. But the numbers are lower, okay, than white men. At birth, 76. At age 65, 83. Okay? Black women live to damn near 80 years of age. At age 65, they at least get to 84.6. But white women live longer than everybody else. I told you, man, white women are the most protected group of people in the United States. Just the facts, man. Just the facts. Anyway, COVID-19 deaths. Black men have been the most likely among black and white Americans to die of COVID-19. This has been discussed by, Dr. Tiasan Johnson and some others, right? At 2.4 times that of the rate of white men. So let's show that figure. Black men are more likely to die from COVID. So here you got black men Then you got black women. And this is the death rate per 100,000. So you got per 100,000, you got 80 deaths of black men, whereas you got 64 for black women. White women have 34, and then white men have 33 deaths per 100,000. So we die. We're unemployed. Let's just recap from where we started off, okay? We're less upwardly mobile. We have the lowest rates of education. We earn less than white men. We're among the lowest in the labor force participation. We were the most unemployed damn near during COVID-19. And we die earlier than everybody else, naturally, and through this COVID pandemic. Thank you, Romello Scuggs, for your donation, bro. So let's get to number 8. Oh man, you already know what the business is with criminal justice. So black men face a much higher chance of being incarcerated. And the figure below shows the proportion of state and federal prisoners of each race and gender compared to the share of the U.S. adult population. Black men are overrepresented among prisoners by a factor of 5. 32% versus 6%. So black men end up making up the largest share of prisoners. And you can look at the graphs. We can look at it. This is just crazy, man. So when it comes to black men, it's just crazy, man. The portion of sentenced state and federal prisoners. Then you got white men over here. We're the largest share of prisoners, man. Our number should be nowhere near white men. Because we're only 12% of the population as a black collective as a whole. There's no reason that this number should be anywhere near white men in raw numbers. There's no reason. At all. So then they say, okay, there's all of these factors together add up to the need for action. But, you know, I take pause and issue with some of the things that they say here, and I'll tell you where. They say, look, these are hard facts, but ones that have to be faced in order to respond to the once-in-a-generation moment of racial reckoning taking place in the U.S. right now. I guess they're saying that because of, you know, Biden's presidency. But if we have any indication that Biden is going to do anything for black men, I just don't see it. I don't see any indication that he's going to work this out for us. Or that he's going to make a move in order to deal with the challenges, the unique challenges facing black men. I just don't see any evidence that he's going to do that. Anyway, it goes on to say policymakers should consider black men's experience and select these facts through the lens of intersectionality. And this is what I take pause with. A framework pioneered by Kimberly Crenshaw for examining how identities can combine to create specific nodes of disadvantage. I just recently showed you an article, man. And the article was one where Brittany Cooper basically said something to the effect that black men were hijacking intersectionality with the idea of the My Brother's Keepers program. So I fail to see how intersectionality can be utilized in order to actually attend to the unique needs that black men and boys have. But this is what's coming out of the Brookings Institute. I'm not faulting these people. At least they're making an effort to try to draw attention to the problems that black men face. At least they're trying to do that. But then the question is, why are there no black men who are authors of this report? Why are there no black men who initiated the legislation that led to the committee or the commission that's supposed to look about the problems that black men face? Like, why are there no black men there? And my guess is, my strong opinion is, it's all due to the posturing and imposing of intersectionality itself. Namely, that black men need to be quiet, take a back seat, let women take the lead, let them handle it, or let women handle it. And as you can see, I mean, who are the authors of this report? Ember Smith, white lady, Sarah Nazal, or Nazua, who is an African immigrant, and Richard, or maybe a first or second generation immigrant, and Richard V. Reeves, a white guy. Why are there no black men writing these reports? Maybe because I guess they're trying to be strategic. They think that if black men have anything to do with it, it'll fall on deaf ears. But that's never said for black women when they argue or advocate for what they need. So why do we have to hide behind identity politics in order to get things done? We need to be at the forefront, and people need to be listening to us. That's just my view on this. This is my take. Look, we got 138 people watching. We got 97 likes. We need to get the likes up. But anyway, there's a case for action. I don't know if this theoretical framework of intersectionality is the appropriate way to handle it. Black male scholars say, look, you need to utilize a different kind of approach. Because racism typically is directed towards black men. It's black misandric aggression is what it is. But we don't gender race. And when you think about gender, you think about women. You never think about men. So this is why we have an issue with intersectionality in general. But it goes on to say, on many social and economic measures, black men fare worse not only than white men, but white and black women. Part of the cause is that black men are uniquely stigmatized, and at least they're admitting this. According to studies of implicit bias conducted by political scientists Ismail White and Kareem McConaughey, more than 40% of white respondents rank many or most all black men as violent. So many of us are violent, and almost all of us are violent in the eyes of white folks. And we talking about the people who colonized America through acts of violence. We're talking about a group of people who subjected the Native Americans to genocide, who subjected African Americans to forced labor, by the millions. But yet and still, we are perceived. Shout out to Grinch, man. Shout out to Grinch, man. I loved your video, dog, on the other night. I just want to let you know that. And also, Barry Little, man, thank you, brother. But we're the ones that are undergoing, most of this aggression from race. But intersectionality would tell you different. And not only that, it'll tell you that we're oppressing members of our own demographic. It'll say we're the white people of black people. But when it comes to looking at the facts and looking at the data, it's ignored. We bring it up, it's shot down. And this is why you got a space like the Black Manosphere. This is why it exists. Because we see that we're getting a crappy deal. And we see people from our own community doubling down and acting as if we're disconnected. But these issues come from our connection, but it's a pathological connection. That's the issue. It's a dysfunctional connection. Because the black girls growing up in these households that are single mother households, single parent households, they do better. They are okay. They're upwardly mobile. But the black boys in these households are on a downward slope. And that's one of the issues we have. And that's not even talking about the dysfunctional dynamics between black men and women when they are engaged in relationships to begin with. But the question is, do you care about your sons? If you're a black woman, do you care about your sons, your brothers? Do you care? Anyway, man, white men are less than half as likely to be described in this way, although they should be the ones taking all the heat. And increasingly, they are taking heat. I have to admit. You know, you got people who are intersectionality ideologues, and they are trying to give heat to what they consider to be the white patriarchy. But it ain't making them suffer. It has no impact or effect on their material reality to be, not as much as black men. You see, they still winning. They're still winning. And that education that everybody is, supposed to be attending to and getting so that they can move upwardly, it doesn't pose the same kind of challenges for them. They can forego graduating from high school and still end up balling out of control. Those are the facts. Because white men that graduate from high school make more money over their lifetimes and generate and accumulate more wealth than black men with college degrees, with bachelor's degrees. Those are the facts, okay? But anyway, it's no surprise then that black men are more likely to be stopped by the police, more likely to be frisked, more likely to be arrested, more likely to be convicted, and more likely to be killed by law enforcement. So this is Rashawn Ray, a Rubenstein Fellow at Brookings, and he argues that black men have a different social reality from their black female counterparts. And this is what Dr. Ronald Neal's been talking about, what Dr. Tiasan Johnson has been talking about, what Dr. Curry's been talking about, what I've been talking about, what Grinch been talking about, what Angry Man been talking about, what a whole bunch of other people in the space, Obsidian been talking about, what O'Shea Duke Jackson been talking about, what a whole bunch of other people been talking about. There's a different set of social realities that black men in this space have, or in the world, in the country in general, than black women. It's worse. And we don't have any programs, and when we do have programs that are proposed, we're told that they're sexist. So at some point, man, we got to actually address these issues, man. You know what I'm saying? We got to start addressing these issues, man. Forcing these politicians to deal with it. So the commission exists. What'll actually come out of it, I don't know. But I do think that there is a case for the justification for a new deal for black men. And he says the perceptions of others influence black men's social interactions with co-workers, neighbors, and structure a unique form of relative deprivation. And here's where the issue comes in. What I take pause with, he says the intersectionality framework becomes useful for illuminating black men's multiplicities and vulnerabilities. Okay, it does, but not when you got black women saying that black men and black LGBTQ people saying black people who are straight and male or the white people are black people. It doesn't become useful. It becomes damaging and destructive. Because basically what it does is it proposes that black men don't deserve any help. Because if they actually receive any help, they'll become more brutal. You'll be empowering tyrants. So don't do it. Divest from them. That's the message that it sends. That's the way it's being weaponized. That's the way I see it. Anyway, it says, given the weight of evidence on the specific and unique plight of black men, general policy recommendations will not suffice. So just recommending policy will not suffice. Breaking the cycle of intergenerational disadvantage for black boys and men requires first a deeper understanding of the gendering of their race, yes, and the racialization of their gender, yes, and second, a battery of specifically tailored policy interventions. A new deal for black men. A new deal for black men. So this is why, and at the end of the day, these women are wanting strong men. But in a lot of instances, man, I'm just saying, like, a lot of our women, man, feel that, you know, they got to rise up. If they're saved, then everybody else will be saved because they're the most oppressed. But when you start to look at the empirical conditions of our lives, you'll see a different kind of picture being put out there. And we need to handle this, man. We need to attend to these facts. We need a new deal, man. So what do you think about it, man? You leave your comments in the comment section. I'm about to zoom out of here, man. I am hungry, man. I feel like I can eat a bear right now. You feel me? So anyway, man, thank you for the support. Shout out to brother Lamont Daniels. Appreciate your support, man. I'm up out of here. Until the next time. 1.